So let's move to module 2, where we can look at how do you do that? How do you find joy when the world is falling apart? Well, in module 2 is about how resilient nurses make meaning of COVID-19 related death. And this is where you'll get a closer look at how making meaning or finding meaning or meaning reconstruction can help you. It's where you'll look at being mindful in the moment and what that is in regard to healing, and experiencing personal growth or post-traumatic growth and how it can transform you. It can change you when you are grieving, to help you find joy, to help you look at some positives. So meaning reconstruction is a term phrased by Bob Niemeyer, and he talks about how we can find meaning through our loss narratives. So what is your narrative of loss? How are you reconstructing your new sense of self since the beginning of this year, when that totally shifted because of COVID-19? What basic assumptions about your own world have been changed? We no longer assume the world is a safe place. And how can you interpret all this and incorporate it into the story of your life? This is about your storytelling. It's about your shared narrative. How are you telling this story? How are you linking meanings, whether a negative meaning, a positive meaning, a neutral meaning, but how are you finding meaning in this and making it a coherent narrative and sharing it with your friends, your family members, and fellow nurses? How are you expressing your feelings? And what a lot of people are sharing with me is that they are journaling. They are journaling and they've never journaled before, and they are finding some relief in doing that. So I invite you to think about how you could acknowledge how a patient influenced you, or how a family member's story influenced you, and journal that. So can you make meaning out of a patient dying alone? Do you find meaning in all the cumulative losses that you're witnessing? Because you are bearing witness to sorrow. And as you deeply listen to a patient or family member make meaning of their challenges, what have you learned? Now, I'm a thanatologist. I work in the bereavement field, and I have learned so much from the patients and the clients that I have worked with. I have learned much from the bereaved. We all have stories that have impacted us. So how do you make meaning out of your life? So as you do that in the moment, be mindful. And being mindful is an awareness that emerges through paying attention. So what you're doing now during this webinar is paying attention to your grief on purpose right now in this moment. And non-judgmentally, it's unfolding and you're experiencing it moment by moment. You're recognizing by being mindful that this is not an easy hour to spend together, because this is about you. And other losses might be coming up: childhood losses, teen losses, adult losses, not only COVID-19. Because when you start talking about a present loss, there's so many other losses that we've shared through our narratives. So we need to be mindful. And what studies show is that being mindful is an effective treatment in reducing stress and anxiety. What studies also show is that gratitude can help you cope with the stressors, the anxiety, the grief, the trauma, the bereavement, and the vicarious trauma. So gratitude is an emotional state that reinforces your social connections. It reduces stress. So what are you grateful for? Get a pen and write that down. Put it on a note card. What are you grateful for? And maybe you want to journal, as we just spoke about, or perhaps you can get a jar. Everybody's cooking right now. All my friends are cooking. We have a lot of tomato jars. Get a jar and every day write on a piece of paper what you are grateful for and throw it in that jar. Or send someone an email and tell them that you're grateful for them. You might, if you are resilient, if you're a resilient nurse, you might experience personal growth. You might say, you know, Barbara, I am feeling grief and trauma and all this. I'm feeling it, but I'm also experiencing this growth because of it. There's an evolving process in my body, my mind, my spirit. I'm learning from this experience and I am being changed in a positive way. Well, that's great if you're resilient. If you are not that resilient or not resilient at all, then you might experience post-traumatic growth because this has hit you to your core. You have been traumatized by this COVID-19 experience. And now because of it, you experience post-traumatic growth, this positive psychological change as a result of struggling with this circumstance. That's what you might be experiencing. Greater strength, closer relationships, open to new possibilities. You have gratitude that we just talked about, and an intensifying spiritual life. So are you experiencing post-traumatic growth? If you're not experiencing personal growth or post-traumatic growth, and you are struggling with the grief, the trauma, the burnout, the secondary traumatic stress, the compassion fatigue, the vicarious trauma, it's just too much. Well, there's telehealth, right? Psychological counseling. Reach out to someone, get supervision. You are not alone in this. We are not alone in this.